إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today is Saturday 12th of Safar 1446 corresponds to August 17, 2024. Today inshallah we'll explain page 436 chapter 35 Sourat Fatir. الله سبحانه وتعالى says أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما يستوي البحران هذا عذب فرات سائغ شرابه وهذا ملح أجاج ومن كل تأكلون لحما طريا وتستخرجون حلية تلبسونها وترى الفلك فيه مواخر لتبتغوا من فضله ولعلكم تشكرون. The blessings and signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْبَحْرَانِ هَذَا عَذْبٌ فُرَاتٌ سَائِغٌ شَرَابُهُ. And the two kinds of water, the two seas, are not alike. This is palatable, sweet, and pleasant to drink. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out to His mighty power in creating different things. How He subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the two kinds of water, the two seas, the fresh, palatable sea, which is one kind of water, and this refers to the rivers, to the sweet, palatable rivers that flow among people, rivers great and small, according to people's needs in all regions and areas and lands. This water is sweet and palatable for whomever wants to drink it. Another type of type of water is salty and bitter, means unpalatable. وَهَذَا مِلْحٌ أُجَاجٌ. And this is the ocean in which the big ships sail, and is salty and undrinkable. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِن كُلٍّ تَأْكُلُونَ لَحْمًا طَرِيًّا. And then from both of them you eat fresh tender meat, meaning fish. So, there's the there's river fish rather, and there's sea fish. وَتَسْتَخْرِجُونَ حِلْيَةً تَلْبَسُونَها. And derive the ornaments that you wear. That means from the bottom of the sea, there are ornaments that people wear, such as the pearls and corals, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Rahman, يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. Out of them both come out pearl and coral. Then which of the blessings of your Lord will you both, jinn and men, deny? Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتَرَى الْفُلْكَ فِيهِ مَوَاخِرُ. And you see the ships cleaving, meaning they travel through these kind of seas, plowing through the water with their beak-shaped bows. As we see the ship when it sails, it looks like it's splitting the water in two. Mujahid said the wind drives the ships, and the wind cannot drive any ships except the big ones. In other words, the small boats are not driven by the sea. You need a big ship, and you need the wind drives the ships, and the wind cannot drive any ships except the big ones. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِتَبْتَغُوا مِن فَضْلِهِ. So that you may seek of His bounty. The wind drives the ships, and the wind cannot drive any ships except the big ones. Okay, the point that I missed here is the small ships, like the small boats, the rowboats, are not driven by the wind. So usually the ship needs to have a sail, and for the ship to have a sail needs to be big enough. This is the meaning of what Mujahid said. It needs to be big enough to have a sail so that the wind can push it. But regular boats, like rowboats, small ones, those are not driven by the sea. That you may seek of His bounty, meaning through your journeys to engage in trade from one land to another, traveling through the rivers and through the seas. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, and that you may give thanks, meaning that you may give thanks to your Lord for subjugating this mighty creation, the sea, to you, so that you can travel through it as you wish and go wherever you want, and nothing stops you. His power, subhanahu wa ta'ala, has subjugated for you whatever is in the heavens and on earth, and all of this is by His grace and mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the sunnah is that when the person rides the sea, he says, Subhana alladhi sakhara lana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina munqalibun. And this is also the same dua that we state when we ride on animals or in the car. So all these creatures, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjugated them for the benefit of mankind and allowed mankind to use them in spite of the weakness of man and the power of these animals and the sea. So subhanallah sakharana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. As Ali radiallahu anhu, before riding on a camel, he said Bismillah, and then after he rode on the camel, then he said Subhanallah sakharana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. So this is the correct way to do it. So when you're about to ride in the car, you say Bismillah. You say Bismillah. So you open the door and you sit in the seat. After you sit in the seat, then you say Subhanallah sakharana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina munqalibun. This is explained. This method is explained by Sheikh Abdul Razak al-Badr, and it's in accordance with what Ali radiallahu anhu did. So he says Bismillah before he rides on the camel. Once he is on the camel, then he says Subhanallah sakharana hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina munqalibun. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى ذلكم الله ربكم له الملك والذين تدعون من دونه ما يملكون من قطمير إن تدعوهم لا يسمعوا دعاءكم ولو سمعوا ما استجابوا لكم ويوم القيامة يكفرون بشرككم ولا ينبئك مثل خبير. The false gods of the idolaters do not even own a qitmir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يولج الليل في النهار ويولج النهار في الليل. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His power, merges the night into the day, and He merges the day into the night. So it's not like a switch where you turn on and off. It's day and then it's night. It's actually a gradual merging of the night into the day and the day into the night, which is more beneficial and more stress-free for mankind. Another aspect of His perfect power and might is that He subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjugated the night with its darkness and the day with its light. So He takes subhanahu wa ta'ala from the length of the one and adds it to the shortness of the other. So until they become equal. So we have the summer solstice and then the winter solstice. Usually the winter one happens on the 21st of December, and the summer one happens on the 21st of June. And in these two dates, for the winter solstice, the night starts becoming longer than the day. The summer solstice, actually rather the opposite. The summer solstice, the day starts becoming shorter. So usually in the summer, as we know, the night is long, and then that switches around in the winter, where the night becomes long and the day becomes short. So as we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does that gradually because it is easier for the souls of the son of Adam, because as human beings, it's difficult for us to change states abruptly. So gradually is something that is more acceptable to mankind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does that through His mercy, so the night is falling slowly until it becomes dark. And then the darkest point in the night is the middle of the night, which is usually calculated by dividing the Maghrib time with the Fajr time, and divided by 2 to see when midnight is. The middle of the night, usually it's around between 12:30 and 1:45 using the atomic clocks. So he subhanahu wa ta'ala takes from the length of the one and adds to the shortness of the other until they become equal. Then he subhanahu wa ta'ala takes from the latter and adds to the former, so one becomes long and the other becomes short. So they take from one another in summer and in winter. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَسَخَّرَ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ, and he has subjugated the sun and the moon and the stars and planets with their lights. All of them run in their appointed courses and in the manner prescribed for them as decreed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't veer off the course lest catastrophes would happen on earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps everything in order for the benefit of mankind. Each runs its course for a time appointed, because as we know, at the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take the sun, the moon, and He's going to throw them in the hellfire as a means for those that used to worship them, to follow them into the hellfire, and also to feel remorse because they worshipped creatures that could not help themselves. And of course, as the scholar said, the throwing, وَجُمِعَ الشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرَ, as Allah says in the Quran, the gathering and throwing of the sun and the moon into the fire is not a punishment for them. These are creatures that were created for a certain purpose. And then at the end of times, or actually at the last day, on the last day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will throw them in hellfire, not as punishment for them, but as humiliation for those that worship them besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كُلٌّ يَجْرِي لِأَجَلٍ مُّسَمًّى means until the resurrection. ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمْ لَهُ الْمُلْكُ وَالَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِهِ مَا يَمْلِكُونَ مِن قِطْمِيرٍ. Such is Allah your Lord, means the one who has done all of this is the Almighty Lord, besides whom there is no other true God. So He subhanahu wa ta'ala did all this by Himself. So it's logical that He be worshipped alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He had no helpers in His creation. He has no helpers in sustaining His creatures. Therefore, He should not be worshipped with anyone else. He should be worshipped alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those whom you invoke or call upon instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means the idols and false gods whom you claim to be in the form of angels who are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not even own a qitmir. So all the false gods, be them angels, be them jinns, be them awliya, be them saints, all these that you're calling upon do not even own a qitmir. Ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him, Mujahid, Ikrimah, Ata, Al-Khurasi, Atiyya, Al-Awfi, Al-Hasan, Al-Basri, Qatada, and others said that qitmir is the thread that is attached to the pit of a date. In other words, they do not possess anything in the heavens or on the earth, not even anything equivalent to this qitmir. Now, there are three things I mentioned in the Quran. There is the fatil, there is the qitmir, and there is a naqir. All these related to the dates. Actually, the qitmir is the thin skin that goes around the date pit. The qitmir is the thin skin that goes around the date pit. Al-fatil is the thread that is in the middle of the pit of the date. So here, this explanation is actually wrong. And then there is a naqir, is a stamp. There's like a small stamp on the date pit. So these are three things. We have seen the explanation of these three things in Surah An-Nisa. So we have al-qitmir, al-fatil, and al-naqir. Al-naqir is a stamp in the date pit. Al-fatil is the thread attached to the middle of the date pit, and the qitmir is the thin skin that surrounds the date pit. So when you weigh it, it has absolutely no weight. You know, this qitmir, this skin. So that means that these false gods don't own not even a small thing. Don't own anything. Zero. So therefore, they deserve nothing from your worship. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about these false gods, if you make dua to these false gods, they do not hear your call. Meaning the gods upon whom you call instead of Allah do not hear your supplication because they are inanimate and have no soul in them. Also, for as far as the graves of the saints, these people have died. True that, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that the earth does not eat the bodies of the prophets and also the pious people, but their souls are in the world of souls. Now, when you stand beside this grave and you start making dua, asking this grave to give you a child or give you a job or give you wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow the dead person to hear your supplication, because as came in some of the athar, in some of the narrations, that if you go to the grave and say assalamu alaikum to a person, to a dead person that you used to know in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the soul back into this person so that he can return the salam to you. But of course, as the scholar said, these are things of the unseen. Some scholars have spoken about this, but the true matter and the true fact is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this narration tells you about the salam only. Other scholars that said, no, the dead people do not hear anything from this world. And that's probably closer to the truth. But in any event, when you go to that grave and you are making dua to that dead person, do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to relay your dua to this dead person? Of course not, because this is shirk, this is polytheism. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to relay your polytheism to this dead person. But on the day of judgment, this dead person will be told that people worshipped him. This pious person is going to tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he is innocent from them and that he is their enemy and they should go to hellfire, because this pious person was on monotheism, because there is no pious person who was not on monotheism, on Tawheed. All the prophets were on monotheism, and the pious people throughout history, since Adam alayhi salam, were on monotheism, worshipped Allah alone. So anyone that worships them, these monotheists, will be their enemy and will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to throw them in the hellfire, because they will worship besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The angels will seek innocence from those that worship them. The saints will seek innocence from those that worship them. And Isa alayhi salam, as clearly mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah, will seek innocence from the Christians that worship him. Muhammad alayhi salam will seek innocence from the people that worship him, and so on and so forth. So these dead people that the polytheists who call themselves Muslims claim that they are making dua to them and they are getting close to them so that they can make shafa'ah for them, intercede with Allah for them. These pious people, these saints, will seek innocence from those that are calling upon them and will ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send them in the hellfire, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow shafa'ah for polytheists. So this saint will not dare ask Allah for intercession for the polytheists. The shafa'ah is only for the monotheists that either committed major sins and died on them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not forgive them, or for people of Jannah to have their ranks elevated in Jannah. These are the types of shafa'ah that are allowed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَشْفَعُونَ إِلَّا لِمَنْ ارْتَضَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not allow intercession except for those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased with polytheists. As a matter of fact, Allah says that Allah may forgive, may forgive the sin for anyone, but He will not forgive polytheism. He will not forgive polytheism and disbelief. So therefore, these people that go and spend money, and this is something, subhanAllah, that I saw with my own eyes recently in the past month or so, and I was shocked actually to see that in a Muslim land, even nowadays when there is, with the mass media, with people knowing everything, there are graves that people go to, and then there's herds of sheep and goats for people that want to buy these sheep or goats in order for them to sacrifice them for this grave. I couldn't believe that, from a logical standpoint, with everything that people know today, with the mass media, with the one world order, with the world village concept, people still did that. This is in the year 2024, and this is in a country. It's a country for Muslim people. But of course, these people, they call themselves Muslims, but of course, this practice pushes them outside the fold of Islam. Will they be excused with their ignorance? No. Allah knows best, because, as we said, nowadays, everyone knows these things. Everyone knows that this is polytheism. Everyone knows that this is what Muhammad ﷺ came to fight, is worshiping others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, slaughtering something, making a vow, another. This is among the worship, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about Ibrahim alayhi salam. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي. My prayer, my sacrifice, nusuk, that means when he slaughters something, and my livelihood and my death is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So making sacrificing an animal, this is also from worship, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Muhammad sallallahu فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. Pray to your Lord and make sacrifice for your Lord. Sacrifice the animals for your Lord. So when I see people doing that, and of course I was misplaced being in this area, I actually mistook the region for a water source. They have similar names. A water source is called Sidi Ali, and then this grave where people that people worship besides Allah is also called Sidi Ali. So when I saw the sign saying Sidi Ali, I thought, oh, this is this famous water source. So I'm going there, and then I see this scene, and of course everyone is looking at me because I was misplaced being there. But then when I went there, it was there was huge banner saying some Sufi sect. I think it's called Bouchishiyin. Some Sufi sect are the ones who are managing that area. So these are Sufis that are polytheists, and they do these things. So for them, this is a type of worship, but of course, this puts them outside the fold of Islam. So in any event, making dua, sacrifice an animal, making vows, these are things that a person only does for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to Allah. He does not do it for any grave or anyone else. Otherwise, that is polytheism. What's more, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that these people that you are making dua to, these graves, they don't hear you. And even if they heard you, they could not grant you whatever you're asking from them. Meaning they are not able to do any of the things that you're asking from. They're dead. They themselves, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ يَبْتَغُونَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِمُ الْوَسِيلَةَ أَيُّهُمْ أَقْرَبُ وَيَرْجُونَ رَحْمَتَهُ وَيَخَافُونَ عَذَابَهُ. Those people in the graves that you are calling upon, or Isa alayhi salam himself, or Muhammad alayhi salam himself, that you are making dua to, these people, they are vying to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're hoping for Allah's mercy, and they are afraid of Allah's punishment. So how can you call upon someone that he himself is in need of getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Of course, he can't help you. But of course, there are some Sufi lies that are propagated among the followers of the Sufis, that these big shuyukh of the Sufis actually are the ones who are holding this earth. And so there's four big shuyukh. They're the ones who are holding this earth. And if it weren't for them, this earth would collapse. And that, among their lies is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consults with them and asks them for permission to do things. So Allah asks them for permission. I mean, look at this. And this person would still call himself a Muslim. This is utter nonsense. I don't understand how these people believe these lies. So in any case, even if they were to hear your dua in the subjunctive, meaning they don't hear your dua, but even if they were to hear dua, they could not grant it to you. I mean, they're in the graves. They can't, they can't even move and come out of the graves. Not only that, but on the day of resurrection, they will disown you worshiping them. They will disown you because you worship them. And this is the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ أَضَلُّ مِمَّنْ يَدْعُو مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَنْ لَا يَسْتَجِيبُ لَهُ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ وهم عن دعائهم غافلون وإذا حشر الناس كانوا لهم أعداء وكانوا بعبادتهم كافرين. And who is more astray than the one who calls on others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and these people that he is calling upon will not answer him until death resurrection, because on the death resurrection they will answer him and tell him that he was wrong, that he is a polytheist, he's going to get hellfire, and that they are free and innocent from his polytheism, and who are even unaware of their calls to them. So these dead people that these fools worship can't even hear and know what's happening in this world. They can't even know that these people are worshiping them. And when mankind are guided on the day of resurrection, these that were worshipped besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said, Isa alayhi salam, Muhammad, the pious people, will become the enemies of those that worship them and will deny their worshiping, because these pious people and these prophets came to fight against polytheists, and these people brought back polytheism under the excuse of worshiping these pious people and these prophets. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says similarly in Surat Taha, وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ آلِهَةً لِيَكُونُوا لَهُمْ عِزًّا كَلَّا سَيَكْفُرُونَ بِعِبَادَتِهِمْ وَيَكُونُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ ضِدًّا. And they have taken gods besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that they might give them honor, power, and glory. So they fight for these false gods. So the Christians fight for the cross, and others fight for their false gods. Nay, but they will deny their worship of them on the day of resurrection and will become opponents to them. And none can inform you of them about this matter like him who is the all-knower, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So people can tell you many things about these dead people and about Isa alayhi salam and how he died for the sins of the Christians and how he will intercede for them. All this is nonsense. These people are not experts in the subject matter. The expert in the subject matter is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows the unseen, the seen and unseen. That's why he subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and none can inform you like him who is the all-knower. Allah knows everything. Meaning no one can tell you about the consequences of things, these false worship, this polytheism, etc., and how they will end like the one who is the all-knower for them. So Allah knows everything about everything. So he is the one that's telling us the true news and the true consequences of this polytheism. So don't listen to those priests and monks and Sufi shuyukh that misguide people and entice them with Allah. Qatada said, he subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to himself, Khabir, the expert, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to himself, may he be blessed and exalted, for he subhanahu wa ta'ala undoubtedly tells the truth and he's an expert in every subject matter. Next, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله والله هو الغني الحميد إن يشأ يذهبكم ويأتي بخلق جديد وما ذلك على الله بعزيز ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى وإن تدع مثقلة إلى حملها لا يحمل منه شيء ولو كان ذا قربى إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة ومن تزكى فإنما يتزكى لنفسه وإلى الله المصير. Mankind is in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Each person will carry his own burdens on a day of resurrection. Allah tells that he has no need of anyone or anything else. But all of the creation is in need of him subhanahu wa ta'ala and is in a position of humility and need before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not need anyone. Allah is free of all need. He subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ هُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. O mankind, it is you who stand in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, mankind needs Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all they do. But he subhanahu wa ta'ala has no need of any of them at all. But Allah is the rich, worthy of all praise. So He's Ghani, He's unique, He's free of all needs. He has no partner or associates, and He is worthy of all praise in all that He does, subhanahu wa ta'ala, in all that He says, in all He decrees and legislates. If He willed, He could destroy you and bring about a new creation, meaning, if He wanted to, He could destroy you and bring forth another people. And this is not difficult or impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, وَمَا ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ بِعَزِيزٍ. And that is not hard for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the same way He created us, He could create other creatures. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَزِنُ وَازِنَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. And no bearer of burdens shall bear another person's burden, meaning on their resurrection. But this is to be qualified. No one bears the burdens of another's burden. In other words, if someone commits a sin, you're not going to be punished for it, except if you were the one that called to that sin. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that whomever calls to a good deed and does it, he gets the reward of doing it and gets the reward of everyone else that does that good deed. And he who calls to a sin, he's going to get punished for that sin. He's going to get the sin for that evil deed. And everyone who commits that sin, the originator will also get the same portion of sin as the ones that commit it. So for people that enacted laws that stripped the Muslim women of their humility, of their proper hijab, those people, for every woman that dresses improperly, those people that originated these laws will get a burden. And I ask Allah to show us their punishment and their humiliation in this world before the hereafter, because laws are being enacted to strip women of their clothes under the excuse of fighting extremism. And when they say that a woman has the freedom to dress however she wants, they mean she has the freedom to undress however she wants. Because in many European countries, for example, and also in the province of Quebec, a woman is not allowed to wear a niqab. So you ask them, where's this freedom that you are talking about? We knew all along that you're nothing but liars. You're only calling to shaitan and his path, and that you don't really have at heart the benefit of the woman, because the one who created the woman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knows what's best for her, and that's why He subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated whatever He legislated for her. But of course, as the Freemasons are going around the Muslim land in those musical festivals that happen in Morocco, in Riyadh, for example, they show this, the one seeing eye, the Masonic eye, and they're making shows to tell and dupe the ignorant, foolish Muslims that the religion of Islam has chained the woman, and that these Freemasons will come to liberate her and free her. Doesn't make sense. This is, just the actual statement is illogical, because these followers of shaitan do nothing but destroy the woman. They use women in their countries as a means to sell things. Women became a commodity. Women are giving birth to fornication children, zina children, to bastards, and women are suffering because these evildoers made the women live in a life that is contrary to her natural predisposition, the way Allah created her. So she is suffering. But the woman who is on the religion of Allah and obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she's the one who is living peacefully. So a person calls to an evil deed. Anyone that does that evil deed, the caller will also get a sin for that evil deed, even though it's done by another person. Other than that, everyone gets punished for his own sins. And calls on the day of resurrection, a person who is close to him, a family member, etc., so that he can take away some of his own burden, that family member will not accept that, because on the day of resurrection, on a day of judgment, everyone will be afraid for himself, and nothing will be lifted even though he be near of kin. Meaning, even if the person called is closely related to the caller, even if he is his father or son, he will not accept to take the sins of the one calling him, because each person will be preoccupied with his own self and his own situation. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إنما تنذر الذين يخشون ربهم بالغيب وأقاموا الصلاة. You can warn only those who fear their Lord and see Him and perform the salah. Meaning, the only ones who will draw a lesson from what you have brought them are those who are possessed of insight and wisdom, who fear their Lord and do as He subhanahu wa ta'ala commands them. And of course, he who purifies himself, then he purifies only for the benefit of himself. وَمَنْ تَزَكَّى فَإِنَّمَا يَتَزَكَّى لِنَفْسِهِ وَإِلَى اللَّهِ الْمَصِيرُ. Means whomever does righteous deeds, the benefit of doing those righteous deeds will come back to him, and to Allah is the return. Meaning, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything will ultimately return, and He subhanahu wa ta'ala is swift in bringing to account. He will reward or punish everyone according to his deeds. If they are good, then the end will be good, and if they are bad, then the end will be bad. So this is it for today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from all trials and tribulations. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save, guard us from all fitan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and our families and our provisions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring back the Muslims to the true path, especially the women and the youth among them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the Muslims gather around a single leader that will lead them to establish Islam and justice in the world and do away with the injustice being done to the Muslims. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give victory to our brothers, the Mujahideen, in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq, and in everywhere jihad is waged for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy the state of the Jews and to make the might of the Jews greatest among one another. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decree death and spread in the land on the Jews as He subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed it on their ancestors. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy the Jews who are killing our brothers and sisters, and along with them the hypocrites and the disbelievers that are helping them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy them all. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take away the kingdom from those that betrayed Allah and His Messenger and the Mujahideen for the sake of remaining rulers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take that away from them, because of it they betrayed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger and the Mujahideen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finally to make the best day of our existence, the day that we meet Him, and to gather us with Prophet Muhammad in the highest paradise of Firdaus. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan.
آمين وجزاكم الله خير.